My name is Arif, and today I would like to help you relax and fall asleep guided by my voice and the story you are about to hear. Tonight, I will tell you a story about how the 4 seasons came to be. But before we start, let's take some time to relax. Make yourself comfortable. Expand your breath as you stretch, and relax each muscle. Breathe deeply. Inhale, exhale. As you breathe in, feel how your pillow supports you. Sink into it with your weight. Let it take more and more of your body's heaviness or tiredness. And let's be still and quiet for a few seconds longer. Let's take a few deep, calming breaths to relax the body. Breathe in through your nose and exhale through your mouth. Breathe in. Breathe out. One more time. Breathe in. Breathe out. And now, let's begin our story. The legend of why we have 4 seasons begins with the story of Demeter and Persephone a long time ago in ancient Greece, in a world wholly unlike the world today. Back then, winged horses, one-eyed cyclops, and other strange and beautiful creatures freely roamed the earth. It was also during that time that men still believed that gods and goddesses who lived in Mount Olympus ruled the earth. The gods and goddesses looked a lot like humans, but the big difference is that they had exceptional magical abilities, like the power to control the sun, the moon, the waters, and everything else. The gods used these powers to help and sometimes punish the people they ruled over. Among these gods and goddesses was Demeter. Demeter was the goddess of the earth and harvest. Her job was to make sure the soil was fertile, so that whatever the people planted grew well. She also made sure that the weather was just right, so that essential crops, such as wheat, which people use to make bread, grew well. Demeter took her responsibility seriously. She went out every day to make sure that the trees and plants grew healthy and bore a bountiful harvest. If there was any problem, the people knew that they could come directly to her, and Demeter would resolve it right away. She was caring and kind, and because of this, she was very popular among the people of the earth. Demeter loved the mortals, but if there was one person who she loved above everyone else, that was Persephone. Persephone was Demeter's only daughter and her constant companion everywhere she went. Where Demeter is, Persephone would be close behind. Persephone was beautiful in every way you can imagine, befitting a goddess's daughter. She had skin as smooth as porcelain, long, flowing hair that glittered when the sun shone on it, and the reddest lips that put the roses to shame. But more than her physical beauty, she had a kind and caring heart. This quality endeared her to every man and every creature on earth. Persephone had the uncanny ability to make anybody feel happy and at ease around her. She spread light and happiness wherever she went, and so naturally, everybody that she met loved her dearly. But none loved her more than her own mother, Demeter. Demeter liked nothing more than to spend hours in the company of Persephone. They talked about everything, laughed, and sang every song. Demeter loved taking care of Persephone and was a proud mother as she watched Persephone grow into the charming and caring young woman that enchanted everyone and everything around her. Unbeknownst to Demeter, Hades, the god of the underworld, was one of Persephone's most ardent admirers. Her radiance and light fascinated him, and he desperately wanted her to be his queen. One day, Persephone was gathering spring flowers with her mother. She sang as she picked the brightly colored flowers from the field, all the while thinking how her mother's face would light up when she gave her the flowers. As Persephone was happily picking flowers in the field, the entrancing smell of the narcissus flower caught her attention. I must have that flower to give it to my mother, she thought, as she followed the flower's scent, which led her far away from the protective gaze of Demeter. She was ecstatic to find out there was a whole field of narcissus for her to pick. She quickly knelt and picked the narcissus flowers until she had more than she could carry. However, because she was so preoccupied with picking the narcissus flowers, she didn't notice that everything around her had suddenly turned eerily quiet. The birds stopped singing, and there was an ominous feel to the wind. Something was going on, but what? When she finally stopped picking the flowers for long enough to notice the strange feeling that was enveloping the field, it was too late. The earth suddenly cracked open, and Hades, the ruler of the underworld, emerged in a black chariot, pulled by 9 fierce hellhounds. Persephone froze in fear at the sight of Hades in his chariot, and try as she may, she couldn't get on her feet to run. Hades wasted no time, snatched Persephone in his arms, sending the flowers that she had picked flying up in the air. Hades and his hellhound-drawn chariot returned to the underworld, taking Persephone with him. The earth closed as it had opened and left no trace of the terrible thing that had happened, except for the narcissus flowers scattered in the field. Hades brought Persephone to the underworld, a dark, lonely kingdom that he ruled. As soon as they arrived, he led Persephone to a room filled with gold, jewels, silk, and rows of food-laden tables. Please, don't look at me that way. I will not hurt you while you are under my care. Say that you will be my queen, and I will give you everything that your heart wishes, Hades said to Persephone. Persephone had heard tales of Hades from her mother, and none of them were pleasant. He could be cruel at times, so she knew that if she were to survive this ordeal, it would be in her best interest not to say anything to anger him. She also knew that if she ate any food from the underworld, she wouldn't be able to return. She just had to play along with Hades and try not to eat while she attempted to figure out the best way to return to her mother. What my heart desires is for you to return me to my mother, Persephone said to Hades, trying to sound brave, although he terrified her. Ask me whatever you like, but that, my lovely Persephone, don't worry. You will learn to love this place, and maybe in the process, learn to love me. You are free to roam anywhere you please in the underworld, but know now that you can never escape this place, Hades said, as he left Persephone alone in her room. Meanwhile, Demeter couldn't do anything but pace around, wondering where Persephone was. It was dusk, and there was no sign of her daughter. Demeter looked for her daughter by the pond, in her favorite meadow, even in the hills that she knew Persephone used to frequent. But there was no sign of her. Persephone, Persephone, where are you? Demeter called out to her daughter. But no matter how many times she called her daughter's name, there was no answer. Exhausted, Demeter went home and cried herself to sleep. The next day, she searched for her daughter once more. Demeter searched inside the caves, the rivers, and the meadows. She left no stone unturned, but alas, Persephone was nowhere. I will not rest until I have found my daughter again, she told herself, as she stared absent-mindedly into the horizon. She felt deep in her heart that her daughter was alive, and for as long as she had that feeling, she knew that she would find her. Demeter looked for her daughter day in and day out. Because of this, she no longer paid attention to her duties as the goddess of the earth. The soil was no longer fertile, and nothing grew well. It alarmed the people, because if this situation continued, there could be famine in the land. The people prayed desperately to Demeter, but she was deaf to their pleas. There was only one thing in her mind and her heart, and that was to find her daughter. The situation had gotten from bad to worse, and the people's prayers reached Zeus, the king of gods himself. He grew concerned about how Demeter was behaving. It wasn't like the goddess of the earth to abandon her duties. Zeus sent his trusted messenger, Hermes, to find out what happened. Zeus learned from Hermes that Hades had kidnapped Persephone, and that Demeter had forsaken all her duties to look for her daughter. Concerned that if this situation continues, the people might starve, Zeus asked Hermes to bring Demeter to him so that he could talk some sense into her. Zeus could not hide his surprise when he saw Demeter's state. She had disheveled hair dirty clothes, and there were dark circles under her eyes. Her eyes lost all its glimmer. She was a shadow of her former self. Demeter, you have abandoned your duties as the goddess of the earth, and you have turned a deaf ear to the people's cries. Go back to your duties once more and restore order to the earth, Zeus said to Demeter gently, as he felt sorry for her. I am looking for my daughter Persephone, and I will only restore the earth if she is returned to my side safely. Tell me where she is, Demeter told Zeus stubbornly, her hands clenched into a fist on her sides. She knew that the king of the gods knew what had happened to her daughter. Zeus knew that there was no reasoning with a mother who was desperate to find her daughter. And so he struck a deal with Demeter. Very well. Hades brought Persephone to his kingdom to be his wife. And, as you know, I rarely interfere, but this situation is different. I will send Hermes to negotiate her release. But you must give me your word that you will restore order to the earth once she is by your side. Demeter stared at Zeus for a few minutes before answering. She was trying to control the rising anger that she felt inside. Persephone was kidnapped, and by Hades of all the gods. When she spoke, her voice was stern but soft. You have my word. As soon as Hades returns Persephone to my side, I will restore the earth to all its glory, Demeter said. Zeus nodded to his right, where Hermes was standing, and with this, the messenger of the gods went to the underworld to negotiate Persephone's release. In the underworld, Persephone's inner light and sunny disposition transformed the sad and gloomy atmosphere of Hades' kingdom. Where there was once barren land, small white flowers grew by the river Styx, comforting the lost, and confused souls ferried there. Her kind heart even tamed the hellhounds, who now followed her everywhere. Even if she didn't want to admit it, but Hades' sincerity and patience moved her kind heart, and slowly she accepted Hades' invitation to explore his kingdom. Her presence alone lighted up the underworld. She missed her mother terribly, but she had enjoyed the company of the god of the underworld, and she was considering becoming the queen of the underworld. Hermes found Persephone sitting with Hades on an elegantly curved couch made from the most elegant gold. Hades had a pomegranate in his hand. Persephone, my only love, you have eaten nothing since you came here, and I am distraught that you might fade away if you do not eat. Eat just a little of this delicious fruit, Hades said to Persephone, extending the fruit to her. Persephone felt so hungry that before she realized, she had eaten 6 pomegranate seeds before returning the fruit to Hades and covering her mouth with her hands. What had she done? Now she had to stay in the underworld forever. Hermes saw what had happened, and he knew that if he were to take Persephone with him, he would have to use all his negotiating skills to strike a deal with a cunning and powerful god. Great Hades, he began as he approached him, I am here at Zeus's command to bring back Persephone to her mother. I remind you, it's not a good move to ignore Zeus's commands. I know why you are here, Hermes, Hades replied. He had known from one of his spies that Hermes was on his way to take Persephone away from him. But now that she had eaten the fruit with her own free will, he knew that she had no choice but to return to him. She has eaten 6 pomegranate seeds of her own free will. I will return Persephone to Demeter for 6 months each year, and for the following 6 months, she will come to the underworld with me. Hermes knew that this was the best deal that he could get, and so he looked at Persephone and said, Very well, it is a done deal. Come with me, sweet Persephone, and I will take you back to Demeter. Hermes said to Persephone as he extended his hand to her. Persephone wasted no time and went with Hermes. When they emerged from the underworld, she saw her mother anxiously waiting for her return. Mother, Persephone cried as she ran into her mother's arms. At last, she reunited with her mother, and she felt so happy. Demeter cried happy tears as she held her daughter tightly in her arms, and as she did, the flowers bloomed in the meadows, and the trees all came back to life. The soil was fertile again, and the wheat in the fields miraculously bore fruit. The earth rejoiced with Demeter, and all was well. In between tears, Persephone told her mother how she ate 6 pomegranate seeds, and how she had to come back to the underworld and stay a month for every seed that she ate. And so the 4 seasons as we know them today came to pass. Every fall and winter, the earth is barren and cold, as Demeter mourns Persephone's return to the underworld. And every spring and summer, the flowers bloom, and the earth rejoices at Persephone's return to the earth. And this is the story of how the 4 seasons came to be. I hope that you enjoyed listening to the story. I'll see you again next time. Good night. Welcome to Soothing Pod's Sleep Stories. I am Arif, and if you are here today to listen to a dreamy story that will soothe you and comfort you, you are in the right place. Tonight, I will tell you a story about how the goddess Athena taught Medusa a very important lesson about what it means to be beautiful. Before we begin, let us take a moment to find tranquility in the space we are in and relax. Settle into the mattress underneath you. Feel the weight of the day leave your body as you sink deeper and deeper into the comfort of the bed. Gently place your hands on your stomach. As you inhale and exhale, focus on the rise and fall of your hands. There is comfort in the consistent rhythm of your breathing. As the breath fills your body, take care to feel the warmth as it radiates from your core, all the way down to the very tips of your fingers. Now that you have found relaxation in the space you are in, let us begin. The story of Athena and Medusa began a long time ago in ancient Greece. Ancient Greece was unlike the world that we know today. Back then, winged horses, one-eyed cyclops, and other strange creatures roamed the earth. Men believed that gods and goddesses who lived in Mount Olympus ruled the earth. The gods and goddesses in ancient Greece always got involved in the affairs of men. They showed themselves and talked to mortal men face to face. They looked like us, except they were immortal. Other than this, the most significant difference between the mortals and gods is that they had magical abilities. The gods had the power to control the sun, the moon, the waters, and everything else that you can think about. The gods often used these powers to help, and sometimes punish the people they ruled over. It was then that a beautiful girl named Medusa lived in a city called Athens. The bustling town was home to many lovely and charming women. But of all these women, Medusa was the most beautiful. She had long, shiny, golden hair that reached her waist, and her face was smooth like fine porcelain. Her face was so perfect that it rivaled that of the gods and goddesses. Men came from faraway places just to get a glimpse of her beauty. Medusa was lovely, and she knew it. But instead of being thankful for her gift of beauty and using it for good, she was arrogant of the fact that she was stunning. Not a single day passed that she didn't remind everybody of this. One Sunday, while she was buying flour from the village miller, she boasted about how beautiful she was. "Miller, this flour is fresh and white, but it's nothing compared to my skin. My skin is fresher and whiter than that of the first snow," she said. The miller heaved a sigh, rolled his eyes, and went back to work. He was tired of hearing Medusa talk about how beautiful she was. Medusa's bragging didn't end there. She bragged to the cobbler that her blonde hair glowed brighter than the sun. She told the blacksmith that her eyes were greener than the most exquisite emeralds. And she boasted to everyone within earshot in the public gardens that her lips put the reddest roses to shame. There was no end to her arrogance. When Medusa wasn't busy sharing her thoughts with anyone about how beautiful she was, they would find her looking and admiring her reflection in the mirror. In the mornings, she would spend hours admiring herself in her hand mirror as she brushed every strand of her long golden hair. "There is nobody more beautiful than you. Not even the goddesses compare to your beauty," she said as she pursed her lips and made kissing motions to herself. At night, she would close the windows and look at her reflection in the darkened mirror for an hour before she got tired and went to sleep. Medusa would take any opportunity that came her way to either talk about or admire herself. She became so self-absorbed that she didn't care about the surrounding people anymore. She could no longer carry out tasks her parents asked her to do without forgetting what it was she was going to do when she was looking at herself. One time, her mother asked her to take some water from the nearby well. Medusa obeyed her mother, but she took too long to admire her reflection in the well, and she forgot to fetch the water. "I'm sorry, Mother, but I forgot to take the water. But aren't you proud that you have such a lovely daughter like me?" she said to her mother without an ounce of guilt. All her mother could do was sigh. She didn't know what else to do with her daughter. Every day, she prayed to the gods, to the goddess Athena, the patron of the city of Athens, to help her daughter be humbler. One day, Medusa's closest friends, who took care of the Parthenon, invited her to visit the temple with them. Medusa was very excited because this would be her first time to visit the famous temple. But more than visiting the temple, she was looking forward to showing off her beauty to the people who went there. Later that night, Medusa asked her parents' permission to go with her friends to see the Parthenon. It thrilled her parents when they heard that their daughter was taking an interest in some other things other than herself, and they agreed right away. Perhaps the goddess had listened to their prayers. You should see the pantheon that the great Pericles constructed. It thrills your mother and me that you've taken an interest in the goddess Athena, her father said. To appease and not go into another argument with her parents, Medusa nodded in agreement. But what she didn't tell them is that she didn't care about the goddess Athena. Medusa only cared that she would show other people how beautiful she was. Medusa woke up even before the rooster crowed the next morning. She went to her closet and wore the fanciest and most expensive clothes that she owned, brushed her long hair, and put on her best hair clips. In her excitement, she didn't spend that much time admiring herself in front of the mirror, like she usually did every morning. She bid her parents goodbye and went off to meet her friends. When she and her friends arrived at the temple, she couldn't help but stare in awe at how big and wonderful the temple was. Medusa, I'm not sure if you're interested or not, but the Parthenon has 46 columns on the outside and 18 on the inside. It was Ceres, her friend said to her. Thank you, but I need not know how many columns are inside this temple, Medusa said as she interrupted her friend. Ceres, instead of telling me about the temple, why don't you tell me about how I look? She asked her friend as she twirled around to give her friend the full effect. You look lovely, as usual, her friend Ceres replied. We will leave you here while we attend to some more important temple duties. Please look around and explore the temple. We will find you once we finish with our duties. Medusa's friend said as she went off with the other caretakers to attend to their duties. Medusa walked around the temple, aware of the fact that people were looking at her everywhere she went. She knew that they were admiring her, so she strolled so that people could admire her better. I am inside the goddess Athena's temple, yet people are looking at me instead of her. That just proves that I am more beautiful than she is, she thought to herself. The Parthenon was full of sculptures and artworks dedicated to the goddess Athena. The most talented artists in Athens made these in Athena's honor. When Medusa walked by a sculpture of Athena, she whispered that she would have made a better subject for the piece. This is exquisite, but it would have been better if the sculptor made a statue of me instead. She thought the same thing when she passed by a painting of Athena. The painter did a great job because the goddess has very bushy eyebrows, she scoffed. I have perfectly shaped eyebrows. It's a shame that the painter didn't know me before. Otherwise, he would have painted me instead. He would have had a better masterpiece. On and on she went about every single piece of art and statue that adorned the temple, until she found herself in the center of the temple, where the 40-foot sculpture of Athena, known as the Athena Parthenos, stood majestically. The famous Greek sculptor Phidias made the statue. He sculpted the figure out of wood and covered it with gold and ivory. The statue showed Athena wearing armor and an aegis, a goatskin shield. On her right hand, she held a statue of the Greek goddess Nike. On her left hand, she carried a shield. Engraved on her shield were various battle scenes. On her helmet, a sphinx and 2 griffins stood, and a giant snake coiled behind her shield. The statue was grand and exquisite, just like the goddess Athena. It impressed everybody who came to see the statue, except Medusa. The temple is beautiful. It's such a shame that it's built and wasted on Athena. I'm sure even the gods will agree that I am more beautiful than she. Maybe one day people will build an even bigger and better temple dedicated to my extraordinary beauty. What she had said shocked her friends and temple priestesses working within earshot. Of all the years they worked in the temple, they knew that the goddess Athena took particular interest in the Parthenon and listened to everything said inside. They also knew that the goddess did not like being compared to anyone else. They had seen the powerful goddess when she got angry, and they knew that it wasn't the best idea to irritate her. Seeing that Medusa was their friend, they tried to help her by making her take back what she had said. Athena was kind and merciful, so they were sure that the goddess would forgive Medusa. Surely you don't mean that. Take back what you said before the goddess gets angry at you, Ceres said to her. Why should I take back what I have said when it is the truth? Medusa asked in disbelief. She turned towards the statue of Athena and said in a loud, arrogant voice, I wish that the goddess would appear before me, so that everyone in this temple will know that I, Medusa, am more beautiful than her. Just then, a blinding light filled the temple. When the bright light receded, the goddess Athena, in all her glory, stood before her. Medusa trembled at the sight of the mighty goddess. She looked around the temple for somebody to help her, but she was all alone. Her friends and the other temple visitors all ran out in fright at the sight of the goddess. My name is Athena, the goddess of war and wisdom. I have heard all that you have said in my temple. Although being beautiful is a gift, it is fleeting. However, kindness and pureness of heart never grow old. If you repent and reflect upon what I have said, I will be merciful and forgive you, the goddess said to her in a soft but authoritative voice. Despite the goddess's offer, her arrogance overcame Medusa, and she said, "You are saying these because you are just jealous of my beauty. It is clear as day that even if I'm mortal, I am more beautiful than you." Athena was silent for a few seconds, and then she spoke in a sad voice. "My dear child, there are things that are more important than physical beauty. You should also take care of what is inside. I could strike you down, but I have heard all your mother's prayers, and so I will be merciful to you. You will become what you are inside, ugly and monstrous." As soon as the goddess said these words, Medusa transformed. Where her long, beautiful hair once was, snakes grew. Scales covered her once clear and porcelain skin. Anyone who looks at you will turn into stone, and nothing can save them from that. Even you, my dear Medusa, should you want to look at your reflection, will turn to stone the moment you see your face," Athena said as she looked on. Medusa was shocked at how she looked. Scaly skin and snakes for hair. She cried and pleaded with the goddess to change her back. But it was too late. "I will not be heartless, and you will not be alone in your current state. Starting today, I will send you to live with the Gorgon sisters at the ends of the earth. There, you cannot harm anybody, and you will have time to think about the things you have done," the goddess continued. And with that, Medusa and the goddess disappeared from the temple, leaving only a trail of smoke. When Medusa's friends found the courage to return to the temple, they found only the hairpin that Medusa was wearing when she came with them to the Parthenon. They searched for her, but she was nowhere to be found. The turn of events saddened her parents, but they hoped that one day Medusa would realize the error of her ways. They hoped that the goddess would be merciful and return her to them. The story of Medusa is a reminder that kindness and pureness of heart are things that grow more beautiful as the years pass by. A pretty face can be gone just like the wind. I hope that you enjoyed listening to this story and that it helped you sleep well. I'll see you next time for another fascinating tale. Good night and sweet dreams.